Good evening. Welcome to another edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. My name is Leon Jones, and I'm going to get right into it. Today, I'm going to talk about Black Greek letter organizations, known as fraternities and sororities. Now, as you know, most of us only hear of the popular ones, and we call them the Divine Nine. Now, what is the Divine Nine? Well, the Divine Nine was started by students at Howard University to house some of these fraternities and sororities. Now, you have to understand that a number of these fraternities and sororities that we talk about today, the nine, five of them were started at Howard University. Three of them were started at predominantly white universities, and the other one was started at a black university, but not Howard. Now, you have the popularity of the nine. Now, the one that started later on in 1963 during the civil rights era, that is the Iota Phi Theta. Now, they started at Morgan State University right around September of 1963. In fact, the Iotas were the ninth member to become part of the Pan Hellenic Council. Now, the first eight started in the 1900s, 1910s, and the last one started in 1922. Now, as you know, when it comes to these fraternities and sororities, they were around for civil rights because, for the most part, black students couldn't go to white universities. They couldn't join the Sigma, 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 Sigma News, the Sigma Phi Epsilon, and all the white sororities. So they came up with their own. Now, I'm going to throw something at you as well. There were other fraternities out there other than the Divine Nine. Now, before I get on to that, what are the Divine Nine fraternities? Well, and sororities. Right off the top of the dome here, the sororities: Alpha Kappa Alpha, Delta Sigma Theta, Sigma Gamma Rho, Zeta Phi Beta. Fraternities: Phi Beta Sigma, Kappa Alpha Psi, Iota Phi Theta, Omega Psi Phi, Alpha Phi Alpha. Now, five of them were founded at Howard University: AKAs, the Deltas, the Zetas. Two of the black fraternities, Phi Beta Sigma, Omega Psi Phi, they were also founded at Howard University. Now, your Iotas were founded at Morgan State University, and your Kappas were founded right here in my home state of Indiana, Indiana University, Bloomington in 1911. Indiana U, IU, that's what they call it. Now, the Alphas, believe it or not, Alpha Phi Alpha, was founded at an Ivy League school, Cornell University in New York. Wood Engineering School, it's not an MIT, but it's Cornell University. Now, your Sigma Gamma Rhos were also founded here in Indiana. They were founded in 19, I believe it may have been 1920 or 1922 at Butler University in Indianapolis. Now, when you sum all those up, that's the Divine Nine. But if you think about it, why are those fraternities and sororities so popular? Well, it took them a long time to build up their memberships. Now, were they the only ones out there? That's the question. I'm going to prove to you that they weren't. In fact, I'm going to prove to you right now. There was one out there called the Sigma Pi Phi fraternity, the Boule. These were the six founders right here. Sigma Pi Phi began in 1904 in the city of Philadelphia. Now, they're still around, but they don't have a high membership because they're very, very, very selective. Now, Sigma Pi Phi, also known as the Boule in ancient Greece, that meant the Council of Chiefs. And that fraternity was founded by, and it was primarily for the top of the line or the professional men. I mean, these were doctors, pharmacists, scientists. I mean, you had individuals later on that were politicians like John Lewis. You had Martin Luther King, although Martin Luther King was actually an alpha. Now, again, when we deal with the Boule, now Boule now means chapters. The Sigma Pi Phi fraternity is a quiet organization, and today also considers itself as private, as was during the case of its early years of existence. So what that fraternity does, it avoids all types of publicity, but it's still around. Now, of course, the growth has been very slow. Again, it was six founders who were part of the Sigma Pi Phi fraternity. And here's what the members, you can see it, 1937, 1946. You had individuals like James Clyburn, he's still around. He's, I believe, the South Carolina congressman. Andrew Young, he was the mayor of Atlanta. Then you also had Douglas Wilder. He was also the first black governor of Virginia. And you had some Alcee Hastings, or not Alcee Hastings, he did pass away. Elijah Cummings, he was Democrat from Maryland. John Lewis from Georgia. And you had a number of other people with inside this organization. But for the most part, and I'll leave all this information under the description in my video so you can take a look at it for yourself, because basically, I'm just letting you know that there are other fraternities out there besides the Divine Nine. Nobody knows about it. We only know of the Divine Nine, particularly if you've gone to historically black colleges and universities. And where's all that founded? It's in the step shows. In fact, Stomp the Yard, where Columbus Short played in it, Darren Henson played in it. Well, that was filmed at Morehouse in Atlanta. Now, were the initiation processes great? No. In fact, to get into those fraternities and sororities, they were also selective. It used to be where the AKAs took all the light-skinned women, and the Deltas took the brown-skinned women, and your most undesirable women, they went into the Zetas. And then your pretty boys were Kappas, your smart boys were Alphas, your wild boys were Sigmas, your dogs were the Omega Psi Phi, and your non-traditional students were your Iotas. Now, it's a reason why I'm bringing up the Divine Nine, because the Divine Nine has the most members. And the Divine Nine is going to play a big role in the political process. I mean, you have people like Stephen A. Smith, Ricky Smiley, they're part of the Divine Nine. And what's happening is they're trying to get black people to stay on the plantation. Because some of the ones that I named for you, like John Lewis, Elijah Cummings, they were all Democrats. Now, prior to the 60s, black people were Republicans. Now, also, Jesse Jackson, he may be a Q as well. I don't know if Al Sharpton's in the fraternity, but there are a number of prominent leaders who are in these fraternities and sororities, and they have a presence, and their presence is to get people to stay democratic. Now, I'm going to say this. If you join a fraternity and a sorority, particularly a black Greek letter organization, join for the right reason. Understand that there's community service, getting members. The fraternities and sororities are supposed to be for brotherhood and sisterhood. And it also use like, let's say William Harvey. He was one of the distinguished members of the Sigma Pi Phi fraternity. And then you had Clifton R. Wharton. He was the first black president of a major university. When I say major university, back then it was a PWI. He was actually the president of MSU, Michigan State University. So, bottom line, many of us talk about the Divine Nine, but there were other fraternities out there. Sigma Pi Phi was one of them. Now, let me go ahead and stop the share and share again. And let's go to Wikipedia. All right. What you have here, you have Alpha Kappa Nu. That was the first documented college fraternity. And guess where that was formed in? It was formed in Richmond, Indiana. They had 10 members. Now, it started 124 years ago, 121 years ago. Now, I don't know if it's a fraternity now, but this was one of the first ones in 1903. Now, I'm saying this because there are a number of individuals that think everything was started under the Divine Nine. Now, the Divine Nine is really under the National Pan-Hellenic Council. Now, some of the Divine Nine fraternities are also part of NIC, the National Intra-Fraternity Council, or the Interfraternity IFC. You have to have a number of chapters. I believe it was 200 chapters to be in the Divine Nine. Now, for a while, I called it the Elite Eight because in 1997, that's when the Iota Phi Thetas joined and they became the Divine Nine. Now, if you look here, going back, and some of them I've already reviewed, you have Sigma Pi Phi. It began in 1904. Now, looking up here, NPHC, that's the National Pan-Hellenic Council. Well, if you look at where you have all these yeses, these are the ones that are part of the Divine Nine. Now, if you look at the ones that are no, they're not part of the Divine Nine. A lot of people don't know that. See, I just did extensive research and found out that some of the later ones, they weren't part of the Divine Nine, but they're still fraternities. Let me stop the share for a moment. Now, question. You think I'm in a fraternity? I'm going to tell you I am in a fraternity. I'm in this fraternity, Phi Eta Psi. It's not part of the Divine Nine, but we are part of the NIC. We're the 10th largest fraternity. We're after the Iotas. In fact, we came 2 years after the Iotas. We're known as the Imps, MM. Now, what's unique about my fraternity is We're one of the first ones, if not the first one, that started at a community college. We started April of 1965 at Mott Community College in Flint, Michigan. So most of the members who are in my fraternity are in the Midwest. We have chapters. We're getting bigger. But we didn't have enough to go into the Divine Nine, and the leadership didn't want to go into the Divine Nine. But we still serve the same purpose as the Divine Nine fraternities. We have people that are present. In fact, I believe his name is Ron Pruitt, who played for the Cleveland Browns. A guy named Dr. Kilgore. He's prominent. You see, the Divine Nine, many other individuals did not know that there were any other fraternities and sororities out there but the Divine Nine. Now, I'm going to put this back right up, go back to Wikipedia again, and show you. If you look at the rest of these fraternities, like Wine Psi Pi. Now, that's another fraternity that began at Howard University. It was a co-ed fraternity after a while. Now, it's no longer a fraternity. They're defunct, but it started in 1959. Then you have some social organizations, and I told you about them. Group 5 Groove. Group 5 Groove started. It's still active. It's not a Greek letter organization, but it's a social fellowship started at Morgan State University. And most of the men joined the Group 5 Grooves, and then you have the Swing 5 Swing. Now, that was also founded as an alternative to the historically Black sororities, started Winston-Salem University. But a lot of people don't know that unless you've been to a historically Black college and university. And you just had a new one that just got started. There's no page on it, but it's Gamma Theta Xi. That's a fraternity. Now, some of these other fraternities that started, like Kappa Theta Epsilon, this is one that is a Greek letter fraternity that was established for entrepreneurial women and professional women who were part of the LGBT community. And, you have sisterhood everywhere, brotherhood everywhere. Now, these are sororities. Well, Gamma Theta Xi is a sorority as well. But if you see the ones, Iota Phi Lambda, not part of the Divine Nine. Now, this sorority was established by a few business women. And this sorority was established, nobody knew, in Chicago back in 1929, 7 years after the Sigma Gamma rose. So, although it's not part of the National Pan-Hellenic Council, it is still a sorority. Now, let me stop sharing the screen and let's really get some information, because this is what I researched. This is all my research. Okay, let me go back. Here we go. Now, you really think about fraternities, and these are all Black Greek letter fraternities and sororities. And you don't have to believe me. You can look these up for yourself. But I was amazed because I was under the perception that there were only Divine Nine fraternities. But if you think about it, these fraternities and sororities that I found were outside the Divine Nine, and they're still in existence today. Now, the individuals who started these fraternities, they probably couldn't get into the Divine Nine, or it was very expensive to get into the Divine Nine. And of course, the Divine Nine has their selectability. They do. Now, sometimes they may select you off of a superficial purpose. Your light skin, if you're brown skin. But notice these fraternities and sororities outside of the Divine Nine. Look at when they started. And besides mine started in 1965. Again, I'm a member. This is my hat of Phi Eta Psi Fraternity Incorporated, part of the NIC. But if you look at these other fraternities and sororities, these are all outside the Divine Nine. And I'm sharing all this with you because there are people out there that might want to get into a fraternity and a sorority, particularly a Black Greek letter organization. Now, something that's different about these, a number of these fraternities and sororities, they were not founded at HBCUs. Now, some of them were, like Gamma Psi Omega. That was founded at Texas Southern University. Kappa Psi Omega fraternity. These are probably brothers and sisters. They were also founded at Texas Southern University. Then you had another one, Alpha Nu Omega, 1988, established at Morgan State University. Now, the first one at the top, Kappa Phi Iota, that was established at Rutgers. Then you had Phi Omicron Psi, that's a fraternity that was established back in the 80s at Virginia Commonwealth. Moving down, probably a sister organization, Phi Alpha Psi sorority, established in 1991 at Virginia Commonwealth. And the list goes on and on and on and on. And here's a list of them right here. Beta Phi Pi, Gamma Phi Eta, Georgia Southern, Delta Psi Epsilon. Of course, here's the one I told you about, Sigma Pi Phi, started in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 1904. Some of these you may never have heard of. Why? Because you didn't know. Alpha Psi Gamma, and these are all Black Greek letter organizations founded at Shaw University. I believe Shaw University is in North Carolina. It's a small Black college. Then you had Alpha Beta Sigma, Phi Delta Psi, Gamma Phi Delta, out of it UT Austin, which is Texas. Then Nu Omega Psi. That was the fraternity founded at Robeson Community College. That's the second fraternity. Now, going down, here's my fraternity, Phi Eta Psi, established April 5th, 1965, Mott Community College. Then you had another one, Gamma Phi Omega fraternity, established June 15th, 1961, at Temple University. So this was before my fraternity, and this was before the IOTAs at Morgan State University. Then you had Psi Delta Chi, that's a sorority, founded at Prairie View A&M, which that's a Black college. Then you had Theta Lambda Delta sorority, that was founded 2007 at Wayne State, that's in Detroit. Then moving on, Delta Psi Chi, established in 1985. University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee. Then you had Gamma, Eta, Pi sorority, established at my old alma mater, Temple University. So you see, doing all my research, I found a list of fraternities, and some of these aren't even listed on Wikipedia. But all these fraternities and sororities are not part of the Divine Nine. Some of them might be regional fraternities. Now, if they're under the NIC, they're national. But what I'm saying is, if you want to get in a fraternity or a sorority, you do not have to be part of the Divine Nine. We do the same thing that the Divine Nine does, but we're not as big. We still collect dues. We still have conventions. We still have leadership. We have everything that the Divine Nine has, except for the membership. Because the Divine Nine fraternities, with the exception of the IOTAs, the, the other eight, the Elite Eight, they've been around since the early 20th century. But the bottom line, these are all Black Greek letter organizations. I'm just going to show them to you one more time, and then I'm going to go to Wikipedia. Some of these might be on Wikipedia. Let's go to Wikipedia. These are all the, some of them I don't even have. Eta Phi Beta. That's a sorority. All these. Now, if you think about it, some of these were founded right around World War II, sororities. Nobody knows about them. Nobody knows about them because they didn't research. They do have websites. Now, some people always think the Divine Nine ones are the better. They're the most popular. They cost the most to get into. However, you want to be part of a sisterhood or a brotherhood, look at what they stand for. Now, again, I didn't get into the Kappa organization. I guarantee some of these individuals who started these smaller ones try to get into the Divine Nine. And for some reason, they weren't accepted. Again, some of these Black Greek letter organizations are very superficial. I mean, I remember the Kappas were always known as the pretty boys, where the light-skinned guys with the good hair got in. And the AKAs were the same way. You had the Deltas. That's what you hear about when you go to a lot of these schools. Now, again, looking at Wikipedia. Some of these up here, now you have Prince Hall Freemasonry. That's a Masonic lodge. Now, the Masons are a fraternity itself, also a Mason, part of Lodge 741 in Portage, Indiana. It's also a fraternity, the largest fraternity in the world. But then you have the other fraternities that I mentioned. Now, again, you have a number of fraternities that were not part of the Divine Nine, and some of them are Christian fraternities. But the bottom line, these are all fraternities that a number of Black people join. Now, let's get into why these fraternities are significant. They're significant because they have influence, particularly the Divine Nine. And there are a number of individuals who wanted to join these they wanted to join the Divine Nine. Now, the Divine Nine, of course, is under the National Pan-Hellenic Council, which was established by students at Howard University, which 55% of the sororities and fraternities were founded at Howard University. Now, again, you have a number of prominent members in the Divine Nine. And I was watching a video the other day, and it was a loud Delta woman. She was upset that an all male council was about to fire one of her sorority sisters. Now, shout out to Minister Jap. When it comes to a number of these black women like Cori Bush, she's probably in a Divine Nine sorority as well. Well, she probably did something wrong. And because she was a Delta, she was sitting in an all male. It was in Virginia. It was in Virginia. I can't find the video, but she was arguing. It was something that went on. And she got the hooting and hollering, saying, well, I'm a Delta. Okay, that's fine. You may have clout in your sorority, but when you get out in the real world, it's a little different. And I know some of them in the Divine Nine, not all of them, but you have a number of them who have their nose up in the air. And I brought those other fraternities out because they even have their nose up in the air at the smaller fraternities. They think the smaller fraternities are probably reject fraternities. This is how the Divine, not everybody, but a number of them think like that. They think they know more. They think, well, they had the fortitude to get in, or somebody like me didn't. Well, we try. It's because of their mindset. And when they're in one of these black Greek letter organizations, some of them didn't even get in for the right reasons. They got in there to get girls, they got in there to get the Greek letters, and so on and so on. The purpose of any fraternity and sorority is the brotherhood. It's the networking. And my fraternity is just as good as the Divine Nine. They have step shows, everything. Now, the difference with my fraternity is when it comes to politics, some of them in my fraternity are Democrats and some of them are Republicans. See, we don't push political ideology on people like I know a number of the Divine Nine does. And I hate to say this, a lot of your political ideology is pushed on the younger people from the early Gen Xers that are my age. Thank goodness I sit on the outside of that because I was off that Democratic plantation 30 something years ago because I knew it wasn't working for me. I knew how to use my own mind. But you have the early Gen Xers, I'm going to say from 50 to 59, and then you have all of your baby boomers, and then still living, you have some silent generation individuals. Now, why are they convincing you, some of these Divine Nine members, to vote Democrat? Because right now, again, you got the people like Ricky Smiley, you got Stephen A. Smith. They're trying to tell me to vote Democrat. They're trying to tell me to vote for Kamala Harris. Well, these guys, what they see when they vote for somebody like Kamala Harris, this is the idea I get. They're voting for the symbolism because they want to see the first melanated person who's a woman become president. That's what they want. That's all they want to see. This is why they'll tell you that, oh, well, the other guy's racist, he doesn't care about people, and they're all getting it from the media. And a number of individuals who are in the media, particularly the black folk, they're in the Divine Nine. And they're trying to tell black people like myself to stay on the plantation, which I'm not going to stay on a plantation because I haven't even been on the plantation. You see, one thing I will tell you about the Divine Nine fraternities and any fraternity and sorority, even though you are a brotherhood and you're a sisterhood, you're supposed to have your own mind. That's the big part. I don't care whether you are Boule, I don't care whether you are a Hugh, those letters don't mean anything when it comes to looking at what kind of country you want. And there are a number of African Americans, and the problem I have with some of these individuals, the older individuals. And why is it the older individuals? Because these older individuals are still living back in the 60s. See, a lot of the Divine Nine organizations, they were founded during the struggle. And they still believe that there's struggle out there. Well, you're never going to get rid of prejudice or racism. Now, prejudice is you're just prejudging somebody. Racism is when there's a group that believes that they're superior to another group by basically excluding them politically, socially, and economically. And we believe that a number of white folk do that. But the ones who are actually prejudiced out here are your ones who vote Democrat. Anytime somebody mentions that you're a racist or you're a coon or you're a misogynist, it's really, I'm not the misogynist. You're the misandrist. You're the coon. You're the Sambo because you are a sheep. You're living where massa is telling you what to do. And this is what's wrong with a lot of older black people. They still live on a plantation. They are happy with going to church, yelling and screaming. They love their jobs and they want government handouts. Also, these individuals, they're really defeated because they don't know how to be creative. They're stuck in the past. They don't understand technology. They speak like everything is oppressive. Now, some of them are making money from racism, but a number of these individuals are part of the Divine Nine. You might not know it, but they are. You have a number of prominent people, black mayors. Again, I just named you Elijah Cummings. He was my congressman when I lived in Maryland. I believe Albert Wynn, he's probably in the Divine Nine as well. And I have some of my aunts who are Deltas. They all believe in the Democratic Party. And I have to ask them, what has the Democratic Party done for you except use you every 4 years? You always grumble that you're poor or you're having a hard time, you're in debt, there's racism. But the bottom line is all the racism started over here with the Democrats. And what the white liberal Democrats are doing, they're using the blacks. That's what they're doing. They're using the blacks because a number of the blacks are gullible. Even if the blacks have a position, like you have the Democratic Black Caucus or the Congressional Black Caucus, are there any Republicans in that caucus? I don't believe so. Now, a number of them are probably in the Divine Nine. They have their own little club. And if you don't think the way they think, you're excluded. They call you the Sambo. And they try to ostracize you because you don't think the way they think. Now, when I look at the candidates, I'm just going to say this. Kamala Harris does not have a plan. She has no plan. In fact, she's on the RAG. The RAG stands for race, then she deals with abortion, and then she deals with gender. That's the only thing she's running on. And there are a number of people that are voting for her because of her race, because of her stance on abortion. and because of agenda. And they're also voting because they don't like the other guy. And some of them are probably the Divine Nine. And they're told by their henchmen, this is how you have to vote. The problem with the Democrats, and a lot of your blacks out here, they talk like they want freedom, but in essence, they want tyranny. They want to silence you. In fact, when Donald Trump and Elon Musk had that conference, the media, and you have a number of the Divine Nine members who are also in the media, they said that was trash. Well, they said that was trash because they couldn't do it. Now, Kamala Harris, she represented herself as an Indian person. She did. And I've seen many of the videos. But she went to Howard University to try to get along with blacks. She's part of the Divine Nine as well. But she's very, very, when it comes to the economy, she's not smart. And my job, I'm not telling you who to vote for, but I want you to be educated. Do you want higher prices? Because I know one thing she said. She doesn't have anything to run on, so she tried to copy Trump when Trump said no tax on tips. Now, she said no tax on tips in hospitality, but hospitality, they're not the only jobs that have tips. Yes, you have your servers and your bartenders, but outside of that, you used to have people who ran cabs that had tips. Pizza drivers had tips, which pizza, delivering pizza, and I did it for a little bit. I could say that's hospitality. DoorDash, Grubhub, you even have some Chinese carry-out restaurants. You can leave money in the tip jar. You even have your strippers out there. Yes, I'm saying it. Your strippers, they're getting money. That's actually tips. Well, the funny thing about Kamala Harris, she's vice president. She's the one that signed the tie-breaking vote because it was a 50-50 Senate. She broke the tie for the Inflation Act. And in that act, she wanted 87,000 more IRS agents to spy on us. So that means if you had transactions of $600 or more, your bank account was going to be investigated. Now, if you have Venmo, if you have PayPal, and if you have Cash App, now that's taxed. Your tips are taxed. She had a lot to do with inflation, but a lot of people don't see that. And she is the border czar. But now she's trying to flip flop by saying she can do something for the border, and all she is doing is basically pandering. And then if she gets elected, she's going to do what she wanted to do in the first place. Nothing except keep taxes the way they are. And you had Joe Biden. He was a puppet. Now, I believe Kamala Harris knew that Joe Biden wasn't good at all. But see, Kamala Harris couldn't even get 2% of the vote when she was running. But she got picked. And now she's out there running like she's everything. Now everybody's looking at her like she's the second coming of Obama. And now they also have Napoleon Tim, who wants tampons in boys' bathrooms. And what's happening to a number of these young kids, and even Kamala Harris said kids between 18 and 24 were dumb. No, I think a number of individuals who vote on the other side, not based on policies, but all you're going to be running on is race, abortion, and gender. You're not very smart. They don't think that their taxes are going to go up because the tax cuts expiration is coming up. So when they expire, what's going to happen? Taxes are going to go back up. Now, of course, it wasn't much of a tax cut that we got when Trump was in power, but we got something. And when you're dealing with government, of course, you're going to have divine nine members in government. Well, the bottom line is you have to know what you are looking for. You have, and that is only going to come by your people and your voters out there. Yeah, I want to say this. We get the government that we get because many of us don't educate ourselves on what these politicians stand for. From my opinion, most politicians are liars. They gerrymander the districts so they can stay in power. But I'm just looking at it from a realistic standpoint. You have Kamala Harris. She wanted to debate Trump. She does, but she wants to debate Trump on her terms. She didn't want to do the Fox debate. The problem I'm having with Kamala Harris, she doesn't want to do interviews. And Napoleon Tim doesn't want to do interviews. Yeah, he went out by himself. I didn't see it. And he was discussing his military record. Look, the bottom line is he had a good military record, but where he messed up is he said he was an E9, a sergeant major, when he wasn't, because he didn't do enough time in the rank of sergeant major. So he's a master sergeant, an E8, and he stayed a little longer and went over to Iraq with his company or platoon before he retired. He could have worn the rank of E9. Now, again, in the National Guard, you can be a veteran, but you must do 180 days. And that goes for any reserve branch. One thing that individuals must understand about the National Guard, although it is reserves, it's 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year, just like regular reserves. The National Guard also, it used to be that it just did state functions. It was an auxiliary to the Air Force and to the Army. But now it's gotten to where it does dual functions. Now, that being said, all these guys in the Divine Nine, no. And, I mentioned the Divine Nine because those fraternities pretty much, particularly the first eight, are the oldest fraternities. They've had the most members. They've had the members with the names, like a Martin Luther King. They have big influence. And I can tell you, most of those individuals in the Divine Nine are Democrats. And I go back and look at it. I'm glad I didn't get in the Divine Nine. You had to pay a lot to get in. The dues were probably expensive. And, when you go into a fraternity, you have to see if that fraternity or sorority is a fit for you. And you have to look at what you want out of a fraternity. And it can't be just trying to get women, trying to wear the letters. No, what do you want to do within that fraternity? You can learn some leadership in that fraternity. But again, you don't have to be in the Divine Nine. Look, this is my fraternity again right here, Phi Eta Psi. I'm a very proud member of Phi Eta Psi. It is not part of the Divine Nine. And we also have a website. You can look us up. We have membership. In fact, we're the 10th largest Black fraternity out there. People don't know that because a lot of us, again, have been brainwashed to go with the Divine Nine. Because the Divine Nine, the fraternities are the older fraternities. At least 8 of them are the oldest fraternities. But if you want to have power and influence, you have to make sense as well. Now, again, I'm not saying that everybody in the Democratic Party is bad, because if there's a Democrat here on this side that makes some sense, and there's a Republican that doesn't make sense, I'm going to vote for the one that makes sense. I want common sense government. Now, again, I mentioned the Divine Nine because they're Black Greek letter organizations. And many of them don't make a lot of sense to me because they're still living in the dark. They don't help the younger people. And see, I'd like to help the younger people out. They wear the colors loud and proud. They get a position in power and they don't know how to use it. And there are a number of them who are in these organizations that can't run anything. And when I look at the old Gen Xers, the baby boomers, and the silent generation, most of them, they really don't have any fight in them. They're followers. They're not leaders. So if they're not leaders, how can they teach the younger folk how to be leaders? They're not innovators. These are the individuals who are just regular employees. They're comfortable. They like being an employee. They don't want responsibility. They really don't want leadership. And they really don't have any wisdom. Now, it's a good thing for some of us Gen Xers that we don't fall in line with the older Gen Xers and a number of the baby boomers and the silent generation. See, I kept on getting this information. And I worked around a number of the younger folks, and I went to school with some of the millennials. And I know some people say all the millennials are failures. No, the millennials, some of them are, but where do they get their information from? They got some of it from us, Gen Xers. We didn't do well when it came to information, a number of us. And then we didn't get information passed down to us. You see, what I'm telling you when we start talking about all these fraternities and sororities is you have to look at the situation. Do you want to be a groupie or do you want to be a leader? And when it comes to a number of us Black people, the reason why leadership fails with us is because we're jealous. We look at each other as being the same, regardless if we went to jail, have more money, we're looked at as, oh, well, you're still Black just like me. Well, the bottom line is there is class within the Black community. A number of Blacks don't want to hear that, but you don't want to bring your bottom of the barrel up to the top because they don't have the home training. They don't have the professionalism to be there. They don't. And you got to separate. This is what white folk do. You don't see trashy white folk up there with elite white folk. No, you don't. But with us, everything has to be the same. And if you think a little differently, you're labeled as a coon. But if you look at the tactics, like I said, some of the Divine Nine fraternities and sororities, what they do, they would pick you based off of something superficial. That's very bad. You know, like the AKAs, a lot of the light-skinned girls went over there. Well, if you think about that, you're dark skinned, you couldn't get in. A number of dark skinned women, they went over there to the Zetas. I know where I went to school at Virginia Union University. It's true. All your pretty boys were Kappas. Light skinned guys, they had the good hair. And that's not brotherhood to me, that's superficialness. And then they tell you You got to vote for Obama or the Democrat. That right there was a big turnoff for me. My job here is to put the information out. And I'm just going to say this. If you go into a fraternity or sorority as a Black person, do some research. Understand what you're looking for. Understand what they're looking for. And don't limit yourself to the divine nine. I've given you information. I'll show it to you one more time. These are other Greek letter organizations outside the divine nine. Right here. These are small organizations. And I'm talking about if you're in college now or getting ready to go to college. Don't be construed to the divine nine. You're going to get the same brotherhood here as you would there. Now, everybody's not going to come up and be in the divine nine. Now, let's talk about the divine nine's civil rights legacy, because that's basically where a lot of this came from. And divine nine has been historically significant for many reasons. And you have to include the Black Arts movement, the civil rights movement, the Black Power movement. Then you have them involved in Black Lives Matter. And these are organizations that are committed to serving the Black community, and they fell in line with the movement's missions. Now, you had individuals, and these were some of the individuals that are supposed to be our leaders, and these were the ones that voted Democrat, except for Martin Luther King. He was a Republican. He was an Alpha. Jesse Jackson, Omega Psi Phi. Ralph Abernathy, Hosea Williams, Bobby Rush, Coretta Scott King. Now, what does the Divine Nine do today? Well, it is still deeply involved in the Black community. The organizations have not forgotten their history as change makers and are still dedicated to service, empowerment, and fellowship, but a number of them still vote Democrat. Now, the members of the NPHC, which that's the Divine Nine, the National Pan-Hellenic Council, they called for racial justice in 2020, and they were part of the racial justice movement in 2020 for George Floyd. And you had chapters that they basically demonstrated support behind the Black Lives Matter movement. Now, again, I wasn't a fan of George Floyd. George Floyd would still been alive, in my humble opinion, if he had given the cigarettes back for the counterfeit $20 bill that he gave an owner. Now, some of the good things that they do, though, the Divine Nine, they do philanthropic efforts from heart disease, and they denounce sexual assault with the specific cause varying from chapter to chapter. They're also involved in voter rights activism. That's good, but the problem is with these Divine Nine individuals, they're committed to getting everybody to fall in line, be on a Democratic plantation. Now, again, you have the Divine Nine at HBCUs, which are historically Black colleges and universities. And the Divine Nine at the Black universities are basically intertwined with the history of the schools, because they're involved with a lot of the campus-wide events, and they are recognized and celebrated by faculty and staff. In fact, some of the faculties at HBCUs and staff members, they're probably part of the Divine nine, because the HBCUs do feature Greek life organizations at athletic events, homecoming experience, and additionally, the Divine Nine has an understanding that they are a powerful network of members both on a collegiate and the alumni effort, and they do come along as joining organizations. And with more people interested in joining HBCUs, these networks will become stronger. Now, you also have the Divine Nine at PWIs, predominantly white universities. Now, here's the difference. At PWIs, you don't see as many of them because the white fraternities and you have multicultural fraternities that dominate at these schools. But you do have some events, if they're black, they are still committed to their missions as long as they're together. But these groups often have become hubs for black and even other minority students who are interested in the principles of the Divine Nine organizations. Again, although they're not as popular at PWIs, predominantly white universities, some of the groups, they have become hubs for black and other minority students who are interested in the principles of the Divine Nine organizations. In fact, some of the other multicultural fraternities, Asian fraternities, they have the same mission as the Divine Nine, but they're not Divine Nine. And additionally, Divine Nine members at PWIs are often leaders of social activism on their campuses. And the problem is, many of them lean left. That's the problem with a lot of these Divine Nine individuals on colleges. Now, they do get involved with other organizations across campuses. And of course, Divine Nine fraternities and sororities at PWIs, since they're at predominantly white universities, they are much smaller, but they are very, very, very tight knit. I went to Old Dominion, and they were like that. It's like it was a big clique out there. And they're still going to hang around their black brothers and black sisters. Now, again, when we deal with Divine Nine, as we know the history has been very rich. And initially, fraternities in the United States, like the institutions of higher learning, were founded exclusively for white male students. Women created sororities in response to the fraternities because the fraternities wouldn't accept women. Subsequently, when black students began to enroll in universities, they faced the same issues. So they created the first Black Greek letter organizations in response to the racism black students experienced on campuses. Now, after the establishment and popularization of historically black colleges and universities in the US, black fraternities and sororities followed. Again, the organizations began out of fellowship and shared principles rather than as a direct response to racist beliefs and practices. Howard University, again, Howard University in particular, was the founding site for five of the Divine Nine. These organizations quickly spread to other universities in the coming decades, including at PWIs. Now, here's where, again, you got to understand how the National Pan-Hellenic Council, it's the National Pan-Hellenic Council. This is how it was founded. Well, the students at Howard University founded the NPHC. Now, it's not to be confused with the National Pan-Hellenic Conference, because there is a National Pan-Hellenic Conference and a number of white fraternities are in that. This is the National Pan-Hellenic Council. Now, this started in 1930, the NPHC, and this is where the Divine Nine falls in 1930 to spark unity and to protect the members' collective interests. Now, though some members of the NPHC were at HBCUs, others were not, and they needed a place to ensure their institutions would treat them fairly. So the council's formation ensured that members would have a say on their respective campuses. Now, again, when we deal with the Divine Nine, they started when there was a lot of segregation, a lot of racism. They started their own, they needed it. But really, do they really need that today? Are Black men, Black women, are they going to continue to join the Divine Nine? Or are they going to go to the smaller fraternities that I've mentioned, the smaller Black fraternities? Or are they going to go to any of the white fraternities? Now, there are some white individuals who have come into Black fraternities. There are. Not as not many I see, but you have to look at what your interest is. And politically, when it comes to activism, and that is the problem that I see with the Divine Nine. They want everybody to vote one party because they're still utilizing social activism. Now, when they participated in the movement of George Floyd, were they told to do that? I don't know. But the bottom line and what I see is this. You have a number of them who they do inspire change. Now, some of them inspire change for the good. Some of them don't inspire change at all. It depends on your leadership. And I have to put it out there like this. If you join an organization and they want you to be part of one party, and that party does not share your beliefs, don't go with that organization. Again, you have a number of people who are in the Divine Nine, and they're in powerful positions. And they do influence change. But that change may be for the worse. I don't hear them too much talk about the economy. Some of them do. If you live in a city and you have a mayor, but a lot of these cities run by Blacks. Some of them might be part of the Divine Nine. They're running to the ground. Crime. I mean, every city has crime. But you look at cities like Chicago, businesses are moving out, taxes are high, people are hurt. You gotta write people in power, even for your fraternity and sorority. And then you have to look at, you go into the Divine Nine. Ask yourself this. Are they in 2024 or are they still living in the past? Because when you hear the Ricky Smiley's talk, they think we ought to vote for Kamala Harris simply for the identity because she looks like a Black woman. He didn't say anything about her views. And people like me who check her voting record out, he's going to criticize me when in essence, he's the fool. And again, I have to say this. When you deal with the older Black people, when it comes to voting, many of them, they watch too much television. They don't get on the internet and do enough research, to me, they're living in the past. And when you're living in the past, because the past is not going to come back. That's why they call it the past. You have to look at what's going on currently and move to the future. Their ideas are old. Many of us, we know racism still exists out there, but we don't need to be coerced into voting for a party that believes in no families. They don't like men. They believe in putting tampons in boys' bathrooms. I don't have a problem with the alphabet community until they start pushing their views down my throat and they start trying to assault me. That's when I have a problem with it. And the bottom line, I brought up the Divine Nine because they have a big influence, particularly in the Black communities. But let me ask the Divine Nine something. I mean, I know when I was in Flint, Michigan, yeah, we went out to the hood and did some things, did clothing drives. But I have to ask you guys something. Did those people get better in the hood? Did they stay the same or did they get worse? See, let me tell you something. We can go out and do all the community service for them and with them. We can give them hope. But the bottom line, no matter what I do for somebody, the other person has to help themselves. And to help themselves, they have to want to help themselves. And when they don't want to help themselves and they depend on me, well, they bring me down. And when you're in a fraternity or sorority, you got to look at your leadership too, particularly if you're young. Is your leadership old and out of ideas? And this is where I see a number of the older Gen Xers, the baby boomers, and some of the silent generation individuals. Their philosophies, they don't represent what's going on today. And that's why a number of Black men, they're not going to college like Black women. Yeah, Black women are still joining sororities. Black men, nah, they're not going to school like that because they know it's debt. They know that college is an indoctrination fest. They also know that when it comes to men, men aren't really wanted on these college campuses. It's a big indoctrination fest. Some of the women, when they get out, they get a degree, they're feminists. They've been programmed. They're programmed by a number of these professors. And this is where you get the media. The media programs a number of these people. And in the end, what happens is, just because I have some Greek letters on from college, what's my thinking? Am I active in the brotherhood? That's the question. Being active in the brotherhood. So again, going back to what I'm saying, let's share my screen again. You have these guys right here. This is a Sigma Pi Phi. This is known as the Boule. This is one of the first active Black fraternities. And again, it's still around. Here's the journal, the Boule Journal. Yeah, they participated in Black Lives Matter as well. They did too. Here, a lot of the members, they have officers. The fraternity, the Sigma Pi Phi fraternity, is organized into 5 different regions whose officers are elected and selected on a biannually basis in a manner that replicates at the grand level, and they're known as regional officers, and they have different names. And the graduates, these are some of the people, the role models for the manhood program. But again, This is fraternity. Now, a lot of people don't talk about this fraternity out there, but it's one of the first ones. Again, you had civil rights leaders like W.E.B. Du Bois, Carter Woodson. You had Charles Drew, Douglas Wilder, Martin Luther King. Although Martin Luther King was an alpha, but you had John Lewis and Elijah Cummings. You had John Hope Franklin, the most prominent Black historian of the 20th century. Daniel H. Williams. He performed the first open heart surgery. So some of these brothers individually in the fraternities have done some great things. What I look at is, what is their ideology? What is their mission? Everybody talks about manhood. Everybody talks about doing something for the community. What are they doing for the community? Are they doing clothing drives? I know I hear them get out the vote. When a Divine Nine talks about getting out the vote, are they getting people out to vote for the party that they want to represent, or getting out the vote based on what the individual believes? That's the question. And I mentioned the Divine Nine because, again, the members in the Divine Nine happen to be heavier in those fraternities and sororities because they've been around much longer than the smaller sororities and fraternities. And they've already established the leadership. Again, they're under the National Pan-Hellenic Council. And these fraternities are huge. And in the end, you have to understand what's going on here. These are organizations. These are organizations that, in my humble opinion, do they support Republican causes? Do any of these organizations support Donald Trump? Ask yourself that. Because from what I'm hearing, they support everything Black, everything Democratic. And to me, that's not real brotherhood. So what I'm going to tell you this, brothers and sisters out there, want to join a fraternity and sorority, you don't necessarily have to look into the Divine Nine. Look at some of these other ones. Be like me. I did. This is mine right here, and I'm happy. But again, here's my big list outside the Divine Nine. And I did the research, very extensive research, because I want you to know that when you're in the younger fraternities, also, it's less politics. So the older ones have a lot of politics. Also, the older ones, for doing a lot of hazing, people have perished just to go through the pledging process in a number of the older fraternities. And they had to have insurance because of things that happened. The bottom line is, you want the brotherhood and the sisterhood, but you have to look at the Divine Nine. Look at the leadership. Is it outdated? I mean, the members are only getting you to vote one way. And that's the problem with a lot of Black people. Not only the Divine Nine, but you have some athletes, and some of these athletes, some of these actors, some of these entertainers, they're all part of the Divine Nine. And they're all Democrats. And they really believe that the Democratic Party is better. A number of them really believe that voting for Kamala Harris is much better. and they're only voting for her because it's symbology. It makes them feel good. They don't like the other guy. Why waste a vote because you don't like the other guy? If you don't like the other guy, just sit home and vote. Because see, they have an influence on how the election gets swing. And I'm not going to vote anybody that's going to raise my taxes. I'm not going to vote for anybody that's going to have more belief in migrants coming over and they're giving them a nice big stipend to live and free health insurance. And here I'm a veteran. I'm out here working. I'm out here paying taxes and my money is going to them. My money is also going to Ukraine. You have a number of them that don't like Israel, but they like Palestine. And I'm talking about even of the Divine Nine, and many of them haven't even been to Palestine. Many of them haven't even been out of the United States. But they like anybody because they're melanin. Well, they like anybody melanin that sees everything from the left. And you know, some of the black movements out there, even the Black Panther movement, communist movement. Yeah. See, just because something means well, you have to look at the intent behind it. That's what's not said. And again, you have a number of individuals who were in Divine Nine. Now, I'm not knocking everybody who's in the Divine Nine, because you have a number of people who are good members in the Divine Nine. Because you have to look at your local chapter. Because nationally, if you have bad national leadership and they still want you to vote Democrat, like Ricky Smiley, Stephen A. Smith, Steve Harvey. I don't know if D.L. Hewley is part of the Divine Nine, Cornel West. Yeah, I know I used to hear a lot of talk about Edgar Evers. Okay. They were good people. But when you're dealing with fraternities and sororities, you have a number of them that vote. And you have a number of them that are athletes out here. And the bottom line, where I want to take it before I end it, I just want you to understand this. You're going to get into a Black Greek letter organization. Know what you're getting into. Understand what I gave you. There's a hell of a lot more fraternities and sororities out there than the Divine Nine. Get into something that has innovation, building manhood. Because when I look at some of these older guys out here, especially Ricky Smiley crying because black men won't vote for a woman. No, I don't want a woman in power because they don't know how to handle power. That's just my preference. I mean, the other guy talks about cutting taxes, the border wall, the Keystone Pipeline, Anwar, drill baby drill. I don't hear Kamala talking about any of that, and that's scary to me. In fact, people from the Northeast, when we talk about fuel is going to be high as hell when it gets cold. And they're going to be paying more because we have to depend on foreigners to get our fuel because they won't build a pipeline. They won't extend or expand oil refineries. When was the last oil refinery expanded? Probably almost 50 years ago. They don't want to talk about nuclear power. Nuclear power is clean. They all want to talk about electric cars. No, I don't have a problem with electric cars, but I like gas powered, hybrid cars, diesel. I don't want to be charging a car up every 15 minutes. Electric cars, number one, they're going to cost a lot more because they're going to be heavier to run. The batteries are expensive. You have to put charging stations all over the place, and it costs money to build charging stations. And not everybody can afford an electric car. And when I deal with individuals who participate on the left, and that includes if you're Republican, just because you have an R by your name doesn't mean you're not on the left. Because some of you are very quiet, like we call them the never Trumpers. You guys are really lefties. See, here's my opinion about voters right now, as I skip from the fraternities. If you're on the fence by now, you're cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. You should already know where you want to go. Bottom line, look at your situation. Now, there may be some of you out there who already have the money and you don't care. But let me ask you this. Want 70 to 80% of your money going away to somebody else? Do you want to pay higher health care? Now, one thing I did hear President Trump say today, because the media is going to come out and they're going to say, well, what about Obamacare? Trump said he's not going to touch Obamacare. And that's a smart thing. You, even though Obamacare isn't great, you keep what you got in place until you can come up with something better. And tips aren't the only things that shouldn't be taxed. And I'm also glad, and you seniors should be listening. He's not taxing Social Security. You should never pay tax on Social Security. You pay it into the system. That is your retirement money. Now, me, here are the questions I would ask Kamala Harris. I would say, okay, Kamala, you're saying Trump is bad, and you're taking something that Trump said about you want to tax tips. I said, okay, why did you vote for inflation? Why did you vote for having 87,000 more IRS agents? And why didn't you pick Shapiro? Do you have something against Jewish people? These are the questions I would ask her. And what would be your vision for immigration? I mean, you say you want to stop the border, but you had a chance. And if you want to end the 87,000 IRS agents, if you want to end taxing Venmo, Cash App, Zelle, if you want to end the cash tip taxes or taxes on tips, why don't you do it now? You're the vice president. If the Senate is tied, you can break the tie. Why can't you do it? Why can't you bring back the tracking? I mean, you have all of the advantage. You're the incumbent. And why won't you talk to the media? And why won't you have a debate on Fox News? You see, your opponent, he's going to CNN, ABC, NBC to talk to people that normally are on your side. Why won't you go to those people who are on your side? Why don't you go into people who don't agree with you? Why are you making everything about the rag? And what I mean by the rag, race, abortion, gender. Why aren't you out there at any of your campaigns? How come there are no American flags hanging up at your campaigns? I recognize that too. Yeah, you have a lot of people. How come you're not educating them? Well, you're not educating them because you don't have any education about what's going on. That's why. And what you're going to try to do, you're going to try to take everything from Trump to make it yours. I heard Harold Ford on the five and say, well, Trump ought to embrace it. No, he should embrace it if she doesn't, not taking something that he said to pander to people to vote for her. That's not honest. Bottom line is, do you want 70 to 80% of your money being taken for taxes? And why don't you want fracking? These are the questions I would ask for Kamala Harris. These are the questions. I wouldn't say anything about race. I wouldn't tell any stories about being a little girl, and because when you were a little girl, you were raised up in Canada. Your mom raised you up in Canada, then you came to California. Now, I'm not going to ask you anything about the bar exam because that's insignificant. Do you know anything about the economy, foreign affairs? How come all of our money is going to, going to Ukraine? And what do you think about Israel? Israel is one of our allies. And why did you take information to pick your vice presidential candidate from the left wing of your party? Aren't you supposed to represent everybody in your party? You are the head of your party. And how come you didn't go through the actual nomination process at your convention? And then why won't you agree to debating Trump 3 times? And why didn't you come up there to the National Association of Black Journalists? Why didn't you do that? Why didn't you come on? Elon Musk invited you to come up there to speak your piece on his platform. Why didn't you go up there? Those are questions that need to be answered. But you are still out there telling everybody about how bad Trump is, but you're not looking at yourself. I mean, you've been out here prancing around for almost a month, and you won't even have any type of press conferences. Trump's going to do a press conference tomorrow. Then he's going to be in Pennsylvania. Where are you going to be? Now, I know your vice president. He doesn't even want to have any type of conference. And one of the reasons why you don't want to have any conferences, because there's no teleprompter. You see, when Trump goes out there to speak, everything is authentic. You need a teleprompter. In other words, you're being coached what to say. Because basically, in the end, Miss Vice President, you have nothing to run on. And all you're going to do, you're going to get the dumb voters to vote for you, and you're not going to do anything for them either. And see, the dumb voters, they might not even like you, but they don't like Trump. And to me, that's a waste of vote. If they don't like you or they don't like Trump, I don't know why they won't vote for Cornel West, Jill Stein, or Kennedy. Or they should stay home. Because these are the ones that don't care about the country. If you care about your country, you're going to do what's right for your country. We don't need San Francisco and Minnesota liberal values. Because if you think about it, look at your state. How come you told us you used to listen to Tupac back in the 80s when he wasn't even back in the 80s? How come you said you grew up with Kwanzaa when you didn't grow up with Kwanzaa? How come, if we're going to get on the race thing, because that's what you're going to ask somebody like me, well, you called yourself Indian and you were on television trying to cook Indian food, then you were going to try to tell the blacks you know how to cook some mean collard greens, but you end up washing your collard greens in the bathtub. That's not how you do collard greens. You wash them bad boys in the sink, clean them good, and then you put them in a pot and season them up. That's how you do a pot of greens. See, you're trying to appeal to everybody. That's your problem. That's what I'd ask Kamala Harris. And then another question I would ask her, I'd say, do you want capitalism or do you want socialism? I mean, because you're way out there left of Bernie Sanders. Do you want Cloward and Bivens? Because that's what you're doing with the migrants. They're coming in here draining the welfare system. And once they collapse the welfare system, you want something else. That's what Cloward and Pivens want. These are radicals. Do you believe in families? I mean, you're over there calling JD Vance weird. There's nothing wrong with believing in the family. But you want us to believe in trans women, trans men. People can be whoever they want to be. Bottom line. But in the end, you live once. But trying to give me issues that are irrelevant, they're not putting money in my pocket. Because in the end, here's what the main issue is. It's the economy, stupid. And if you don't know that, I'm going to tell you right now, you look at how much you're paying for your gas prices, how much you're paying for groceries, how much you're paying for health care. And see, it's all of us Americans. See, the people at the bottom, they're getting handouts. People like me that have to pay all the taxes. And taxes are very, very high in some areas. Now, again, for some of you people who are living in blue states and you're coming down in the red states, that's great that you do that, but leave your blue state mindset back in the blue states. Because all you're doing, you're going to turn the red states blue, and you're going to wonder why you're not getting ahead. Because, you know, when it comes to everything, you're going to have a lot of dummies out there voting. And people like me are going to keep getting the information out. And when it comes to the blacks, don't listen to the people in the Divine Nine who want to keep you on that Democratic plantation. Don't do it. Don't listen to some of these older folks out there. Even your mother, your sisters, your aunts, all black females, the older ones, the older Gen X ones, the older baby boomers, the silent generation, and that include and watch the men. A number of these men follow women. They're not leaders. A number of them are really women inside a man's body themselves. People like Van Jones, people like Michael Eric Dyson. They get very emotional if you disagree with them. Don't listen to the media. Turn off the Joy Reids. Turn off the Joy Behars. Turn off the Nora O'Donnells. Turn off CNN. If you want real information, go to people like me, ABL, Barry Cunningham. Come to us because we're going to give it to you straight. We will do the research for you. Don't even turn on Fox News. Don't even turn on Newsmax. I mean, Newsmax is a little bit better than Fox News, but network news and cable news, they're all owned by corporations. And in the end, they're not going to give you the right information. And don't be fooled by the polls. You need to understand the methodology when you deal with the polls. Because in the end, the real answer is this. Do you want capitalism, liberty, or do you want socialism and tyranny? The choice is yours. And that's my commentary for this edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. If you like what I just presented, please comment, share, and subscribe. And if you're looking for some science, technology, engineering, and math content, you check out my second channel, the QCIS channel. On that channel, I give you a daily dose of science, technology, engineering, and math. And now, for all of my content that I'm doing on YouTube, particularly from the 411 Talk Zone radio show, you can also find these videos on my Rumble. Yes, I'm posting videos on Rumble and on Truth Social. And also, I'm posting videos from the 401 Talk Zone radio show channel and the QCIS channel up to my Twitter page. And for the QCIS channel, since that channel is an educational channel, I'm also going to post that content to my LinkedIn page. And in the end, be blessed for what you have. Don't worry about what you don't have. Always know that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. For you all who may be offended by this content or ones who aren't, I'm just going to say this. If it doesn't apply, let it fly. But if the shoe fits, wear it. If you don't like the shoe, then change it. And once again, thank you for listening to this edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. Till next time, my name is Leon Jones. I want you all to have a wonderful and gracious evening. God bless you. I'm out.